Donald was named Time Magazine's Person of the Year yesterday. And before you let that send you into a tailspin, just remember that the person named Person of the Year is not necessarily a good guy. It's just somebody who has a lot of influence in that calendar year. Um, Hitler was Time's Person of the Year way back when. Not that I'm drawing any analogies. As a special prize for this potentially dubious honor, Donald was invited to ring the shiny bell at the New York Stock Exchange, where he had a truly inspiring message for the American people.
Trump will succeed Taylor Swift as Time Magazine's Person of the Year. It's the second time Trump has been awarded that distinction. And while in Manhattan today, the president-elect discussed how it's different this time around.
I think I like it better this time, actually, but we did a good job. We had a great first term, despite a lot of turmoil caused unnecessarily. But the media's tamed down a little bit. They're liking us much better now, I think. If they don't, we'll have to just take them on again, and we don't want to do that.
Hey, how does that make you feel, enemy of the people? Yeah, probably not too good. Anyway, shortly after this edition of the magazine was published, Time Magazine's owner, Mark Benioff, said that Donald's presidency, quote, marks a time of great promise for America, and we look forward to working together to advance American success and prosperity for everyone, unquote. Mark, that is not supposed to be how it works. You are supposed to be objective, but I guess so much for that. As part of being named Person of the Year, Donald had to sit down for an interview with Time, and here are some of the lowlights. He continued to push the false narrative that there was widespread election fraud in the 2020 election, despite numerous courts, Republican election officials, and independent fact checkers debunking every single one of those claims. He even went on to say completely outlandish things like this, quote, I did win the greatest election that a lot of people say we had in hundreds of years, unquote. He was talking about 2024, but no one has ever said this, and that's because it's completely false. His margin of victory was one of the smallest in U.S. history. And, just so you feel a little less bad about how things are going right now, he didn't get even 50% of the vote. More than 50% of Americans voted against him. Before we continue, please just take a second and hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, so when during this interview, Donald was asked about the January 6th insurrectionists, he said that he would be looking into pardoning them early on, maybe the first 9 minutes, which is assuming, of course, the Bible on which he's sworn in doesn't catch fire. Donald continues to recast the January 6th Capitol rioters as patriots, rather than acknowledging the fact that he had incited an insurrection against his own government in an effort to overturn the results of a free and fair election. Although he took credit for the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority's decision that paved the way for overturning Roe v. Wade, Donald was vague and sometimes contradictory in his statements on abortion policy, which underscores the difficulty he's going to have balancing the hardline anti-abortion insistence of his base with the political fallout the Republican Party suffered since that decision was handed down in 2022. Here's an example from the transcript. Time Magazine, you're against the abortion pill? Donald, no, I was against stopping it. Time, right, okay, just to clarify. Donald, so I don't see any reason why it changed, but somebody could come up with something that, this horrible thing, spoken with the clarity we've all come to expect from him. He also, of course, demonstrated a lot of dishonesty about policy outcomes. He bragged about policy achievements that either never materialized, were later reversed due to legal defeats, or belonged to somebody else, including his struggles with immigration policy and his repeated failures to build meaningful consensus on infrastructure or healthcare reform. But when asked about governing in his new term and his priorities in Congress, he had this to say, quote, My first priorities are I don't really need Congress for it, frankly, securing the border and drilling for oil, unquote. Okay, got that, Republicans in Congress? He wants to bypass you at every possible opportunity. You might want to Google what your job description is. Time accompanied this interview with a fact check document. And other media outlets also fact checked Donald. It would have been much more beneficial if fact check had occurred within the interview itself. And obviously, they were able to highlight numerous inaccuracies in many of Donald's claims, ranging from things he had to say about vaccines to the economy to his foreign policy record, further dismantling the myth of his supposed great successes and emphasizing how often he either distorted or completely fabricated facts. Throughout the interview, Donald leaned heavily, as he always does, on self-praise and personal grandiosity while dismissing genuine policy failures, legal setbacks, and ethical breaches as quote-unquote fake news. Didn't you miss hearing that? He also claimed that they were politically motivated attacks and yet never provided any substantive defense or evidence to support those claims. Remember all the times in his campaign when he promised to bring down inflation and the price of groceries? And we now know that many, many tens of millions of Americans listed the economy as their most important concern. This is what he had to say before the election.
And we're going to get the prices down. We have to get them down. It's too much. Groceries, cars, everything. We're going to get the prices down.
But prices will come down. You just watch. They'll come down, and they'll come down fast.
So tomorrow, I will end inflation.
And I will end inflation very quickly.
Okay, that video clip could have been much, much longer because he repeated those lies many, many times. Although, honestly, it is a little bit upsetting that American voters don't know enough not to know that he was lying about being able to bring down inflation on day one. It's just, that's not how it works. So now he's saying, quote, I'd like to bring them down, meaning grocery prices. It's hard to bring things down once they're up. You know, it's very hard, unquote. Once again, thank you. When Time, towards the end of the interview, asked Donald what his father, Fred Trump Sr., would think of his political comeback, Donald had this to say, quote, I think he maybe would not call it a comeback. He would have said, it's just Donald failing up, just like I taught him. Thanks, Grandpa.